They called her easy. Not the kind of easy that gets judged, the kind that gets praised. She didn't talk back, didn't cry in public, didn't complain when things were unfair, and things were almost always unfair. She made her own lunches, set the table, remembered which pills her mom forgot to take. She brushed her sister's hair before school and waited by the door while her dad shouted on the phone again. And she smiled, a lot. Too much, maybe. The first time she was called the strong one, she was 7. She had wiped tears off her little brother's face after their dad slammed the door again. She told him it was okay, even when she didn't believe it. Her mom looked at her like a strange kind of miracle. Not warmth, relief. Like, thank God one of them turned out like me. She felt proud. And then something else, something heavier. Praise can feel like pressure, especially when it only comes when you're silent, obedient, useful. She learned to read people before they spoke, knew how to soften the air when tension crept in, knew when to change the subject, when to laugh too loud so no one else would cry. They never told her she had to be the one who held everything together. They didn't have to. The silence did it for them. No one saw how often she blinked when someone asked if she was okay. No one noticed how tightly she held the hem of her sweater under the table. No one asked what she did when she got home from school, because she always did what needed to be done. That's what they loved about her. She didn't need reminders, didn't ask for help, didn't act out. She was their peace, their order, their proof that the chaos hadn't won. But she was tired, so tired. Not the kind of tired a nap could fix. The kind that settles in your bones when you've been living like you're 40 since you were 10. She sat in class with her hand raised, not because she wanted to speak, but because it was expected. She walked home past other kids laughing in yards, thinking, who would I be if I didn't have to be useful? At family parties, she smiled through forced conversations. She hugged the uncle who made her skin crawl. She cleaned up plates no one asked her to. And when someone told her, you're just like your mother, such a caretaker, she smiled again and went to wash her hands for the 3rd time that hour. There was a night she still thinks about sometimes. She was 14. Everyone was asleep. She stood in the kitchen drinking water in the dark, and for the first time, she whispered aloud, I don't think anyone really knows me. The words felt strange in her mouth, foreign, almost selfish, because when you've spent your whole life being what everyone else needs, you forget what it means to need anything for yourself. Kierkegaard once wrote that despair is not weakness, it's strength that's used to hide the soul. And maybe that's what she was. Not broken, not fragile, just misused. Used by the people she loved the most, used by a system that rewards silence, used by herself to survive. She doesn't hate them, not her parents, not the teachers, not the cousins who said she'd grow up to be a therapist because she was so emotionally mature. She doesn't even hate herself. Not really. But there's a soft ache now, like a bruise under her ribs that only hurts when she breathes too deeply. When someone asks too kindly, how are you really? And she doesn't know where to begin. Everyone remembers her strength, but no one remembers the weight. No one remembers that she never cried at her own birthday party, that she cleaned the cake knife before anyone asked. They remember the smile, but not how it froze. She didn't become this way because she was strong. She became this way because no one gave her permission to fall. So she didn't. She stayed upright, quiet, smiling. And somewhere beneath it all, something small and trembling waited. Still does. She lies in bed flat on her back, phone on her chest, face lit by blue light. Too tired to scroll, too restless to sleep. She doesn't feel sad. She doesn't feel anything. Not really. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that hums under your skin, that makes the ceiling look too white. The kind that doesn't come with peace, just pressure, disguised as stillness. She opens a text from a friend, leaves it unread. Not because she's upset, just she has no energy to care right now. Not because she doesn't love them, but because she's running on something emptier than empty. This is the part no one posts about, the part that doesn't look like pain, the part that looks like stillness, but feels like collapse. She used to cry in secret. Now even the tears have dried. as if her body finally said, "We've already mourned this. Let's just survive." And so she does. She eats enough not to pass out, smiles just enough to avoid questions, laughs just enough that people think she's okay. That's the thing about high-functioning sadness. It doesn't scream, it performs. She remembers a night, 12 years old, brushing her mother's hair. Her mom hadn't moved from the couch all day. The air smelled like dry shampoo and yesterday's coffee. She sat behind her, parting the hair with small fingers. Not out of duty, out of instinct. She had learned that if her mother softened, even for a moment, they might all breathe a little easier. That's how early it started. This habit of noticing everyone else's pain before she ever acknowledged her own. In school, she was the one people told secrets to, the wise beyond her years girl, the good listener. She wore those labels like honor, but sometimes she'd sit in the bathroom stall at lunch just to be alone. Not to cry, just to stop existing for others, even for 5 minutes. She'd sit with her knees pulled to her chest, staring at the cracks in the tile, wondering what it would be like to be the one held for once. At home, she moved like a shadow. Dishes done before being asked. Homework completed before dinner. No complaints, no drama. Even when her father slammed the door too hard. Even when her sister screamed about nothing and everything. She was the anchor, the emotional sponge, the safety net wrapped in silence. And the world applauded her for it. Such a good girl, so helpful, so mature. But no one asked what it cost. No one asked what she wanted, because she didn't want much, right? She never caused trouble, never raised her voice, never asked for anything. She was the easy one, so they let her stay that way. Kierkegaard said, "The greatest lie is to seem happy when one's heart is breaking." But she didn't even feel broken anymore. She felt absent, like a body in motion without a spirit inside. She remembered how she used to daydream as a kid. Beaches, music, cities where no one knew her name. Now she just stares at walls and checks the fridge, not because she's hungry, but because the door light feels like something happening. She holds her fork too tightly during dinner. Still, years later, not out of stress, but because that's how her body learned to anchor itself. It's like her nervous system never got the memo that she's no longer in danger, that she's allowed to relax now, allowed to breathe, allowed to feel. But it doesn't matter, because when your trauma became your routine, comfort starts to feel suspicious. She ghosts friends for no reason, avoids calls, doesn't show up, even when she wants to, not because she's rude, not because she doesn't care, but because everything feels like too much, even joy, especially joy. Because when you've been emotionally starving for so long, happiness feels like a meal you don't know how to eat. So she disappears, quietly, without burning bridges, without dramatic exits, just fades, like a background tab on a browser. Still open, still running, still draining energy, but forgotten even by herself. She didn't collapse loudly. She didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't shatter. She just disappeared slowly, from herself, from everyone. Until the girl who once brushed her mother's hair started brushing her own in silence. Still trembling, still holding, still invisible, even when the world is looking straight at her. She wakes up before her alarm. She always has, even as a kid, especially as a kid. The house was quieter at that hour, and in quiet, she felt less responsible for holding it all together. No questions, no moods to manage, just her and the soft hum of a refrigerator that didn't expect anything from her. But still, her body never fully relaxed. Even when no one was watching, her shoulders stayed slightly raised, like they forgot how to settle. She doesn't remember the exact moment it started. This habit of becoming who the room needed. It didn't feel like pretending. It felt like adapting, like adjusting the volume of your own soul to match the moment. She was the good one, the safe one, the solid presence in chaos, the girl who knew how to redirect tension, how to listen without flinching, how to disappear emotionally while looking fully present, and slowly being everything to everyone. She stopped being anyone to herself. Kierkegaard wrote that the greatest despair is forgetting your own self. Not from neglect, but from too much performance. And maybe that's what she did. She didn't lose herself. She never got to meet herself because she was busy playing the version of her that wouldn't disappoint, wouldn't interrupt, wouldn't cry too loud or feel too much or need too deeply. She walks by the mirror every day. It hangs by her bedroom door, slightly tilted, like it doesn't want to look her in the eye. She glances at it but rarely lingers, not out of shame, but out of unfamiliarity. It's not that she hates her reflection, it's that she doesn't recognize the person staring back, not the hair or the skin or the eyes, but the hollowness behind them, the absence of something she doesn't know how to name. She remembers her childhood smile, the one that made adults say, "You're so composed for your age." They meant it as a compliment, but what they never knew was that the smile was just scaffolding, holding her together, barely. That version of her, the calm one, the helper, the emotionally stable child, was the mask they celebrated. So she wore it proudly, then she wore it constantly, then she forgot how to take it off. There's a deep kind of loneliness that comes from always being okay, from being the one everyone leans on, but no one checks in with. And now as an adult, that loneliness doesn't roar, it hums. It shows up in the way she answers texts 2 days late, even though she saw them immediately. It shows up in how she prepares a thoughtful gift for a friend's birthday, but forgets her own until someone posts about it. It shows up when she smiles out of habit, even when no one's in the room. Some nights she lies awake wondering, who would I be if no one expected anything? If no one needed me to be okay all the time? She tries to imagine a version of herself who wakes up late, lets the dishes sit in the sink, says no without guilt, and cries without apology. It feels impossible, but also like freedom, like something she might want, even if she doesn't know how to want things anymore. Her days are still efficient. Emails answered, errands done, smiles offered, voicemails returned, scared that she won't either. That childhood smile still floats through her memories. The one from the birthday photo, cake on the table, wrapping paper on the floor. She was already cleaning before the candles were blown out. Already back in roll. Already gone. She walks past the mirror again. Same one, same tilt. But this time she stops. Just a second longer. Just enough to meet her own gaze. And the face in the mirror doesn't smile, doesn't pose, doesn't look away. It just looks back. Quiet. Still. And for the first time, a little bit real. She sits at her desk, a journal open, pen in hand, blank page. She wants to write something honest, but the moment the pen touches paper, she freezes. Not because she has nothing to say, but because she doesn't know who she's saying it as. Daughter? Caretaker? Peacemaker? Ghost? There are too many versions of her, but none of them feel like home. It's quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like a pause after someone says your name, but doesn't follow up with anything. She looks around her room, books neatly stacked, sweater folded on the edge of the bed, phone face down, everything in its place, except her. The phone buzzes. She doesn't pick it up, not right away. It's her mom, again. And for once, she lets it ring, not out of anger, not out of rebellion, but out of something quieter, something that whispers, I can't be the one today. The call ends, no voicemail, just silence. And strangely, she feels like she can breathe. It hits her slowly. She's always been available, always reachable, always answering, even when she had nothing left, even when her hands were shaking, even when her own voice felt like an afterthought. That kind of loyalty looks like love, but sometimes it's just fear wearing polite shoes. She stares back at the blank journal page. Still nothing. Her hand doesn't move, but her mind does. It rewinds. To birthday parties she planned but never enjoyed. To moments when she smiled for the sake of keeping peace, not because anything inside her felt joyful. To the day she helped her dad file taxes at 15 because her mom said, "You're the only one who can calm him down." To every time she put out a fire and inhaled the smoke herself. She flips the journal shut, not ready to write, but also not ready to lie. Sometimes silence is braver than forced honesty. Sometimes the question is the beginning. If I wasn't their anchor, she whispers, who would I be? The question lingers. It doesn't demand an answer. It just sits in the air, soft and terrifying, because anchors are steady, dependable, rooted, but anchors also sink, and no one ever asks if they want to be pulled back up. She remembers how her mom called her the strong one, how relatives complimented her poise, how teachers praised her maturity. But strength to her always came with a price tag. It meant being the last to eat, the first to clean, the one who didn't cry because someone else needed the space to fall apart. And here's the contradiction. She was loved, she knows that, but she was also invisible because her needs were quiet, and quiet gets overlooked. They loved her, but they loved her role more. They loved her smile, but not the silence behind it. They loved her presence, but not the parts that needed something in return. She checks her phone again. One new message. Can you call me later? She doesn't reply. Not yet. She places the phone down, gently, like setting down a weight she's carried too long. And in that small moment, she feels something she can't name. Not relief, not guilt, just stillness. Like she's making space for someone she hasn't met in years, herself. Kierkegaard once said, faith begins where understanding ends. And maybe she's there now, that strange in between, where she doesn't understand who she is anymore because she's finally stopped being what they needed. It's not clarity, it's not confidence, it's just an ache with a little more oxygen in it. Maybe that's where healing starts. Not with answers, not with declarations, but with the bravery to ask a question you know might change everything. Maybe trembling isn't weakness. Maybe it's how the truth begins to take shape. Maybe the phone ringing is no longer a summons. Maybe it's just a sound now. And maybe, for once, she doesn't have to answer. It was supposed to be just another Thursday. Family dinner. Her name in the group chat. A reminder from her mom. Don't be late this time. She saw the message, read it 3 times, and this time, she didn't reply. Not out of defiance, not out of spite, but out of something even quieter. Exhaustion. Not the kind you sleep off, the kind that lives behind your eyes, the kind that builds day by day until you don't even recognize the version of you who used to push through it. She stood in the kitchen with her phone still in hand. Her thumb hovered over the reply button, then moved down. Clicked mute. That was it. No explanation. No sorry. Just a pause. And for once, she didn't fill it with a performance. The clock hit 6 seconds. She didn't change clothes, didn't put on the smile, didn't run through the script of, how's work? You look tired, and I'm fine. Instead, she sat on the couch in sweatpants, legs curled beneath her, wrapped in a blanket that still smelled like old detergent. She didn't know what she was waiting for, but she knew she couldn't keep waiting to be okay. So she let herself fall apart. Not loudly, not dramatically, just honestly. The first tear caught her by surprise. It came before a thought, before a reason, and then came the second, then the third. And soon, she was crying the kind of cry you only cry when no one's watching. Not the careful kind, not the edited, polite version, but the cry of someone finally giving up the job of being the strong one. And as the tears fell, onto her hoodie, into her open palms, down the cracks she had sealed shut for years, she didn't wipe them away. Because this time, they weren't a mistake. They were a return. She remembered the last time she had cried in front of someone. She was 9. Tried to tell her mom she didn't want to go to school that day. Too tired, too small, too much. Her mom said, well, you're the big sister. Be strong for your brother. And so she was, from that day forward. But something in her stayed 9 for a very long time, holding that tear in her throat, choking it into a smile. There was a knock at the door. She didn't move, didn't fix her face, didn't rehearse a version of herself that could be seen. It was her best friend, holding a tote bag with 2 mugs, mismatched socks, and a softness that didn't ask questions. They didn't say much, just sat, One mug passed, one shoulder offered, in a silence that held her more tenderly than words ever could. "I feel like I'm failing," she whispered, voice cracked, heart too tired to guard itself. "You're not failing," her friend said. "You're finally telling the truth." And in that moment, she didn't feel fixed, but she didn't feel alone either. And that was new and enough. Kierkegaard once wrote, "To be truly whole, one must first be truly broken." She'd spent her whole life being the glue, but never noticed how much of her was cracking underneath it. They had loved her smile, praised her responsibility, admired how well she held it all together. But no one ever asked what it cost, and maybe they never would. But tonight, for once, she didn't need them to, because for the first time, she wasn't performing strength. She was living softness. Later that night, she passed the mirror. Same frame, same tilt. She paused. No smile, no mask. Just a girl with tired eyes, wet cheeks, and a kind of calm that can only come after a storm. She didn't look brave, didn't look strong, but she looked real. And that, for her, was more than she had ever allowed herself to be. It began like any other quiet morning. Except this time, the quiet didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like space. The sun came through the window with that sleepy golden haze, not demanding, not dramatic, just soft light on her floor, dust floating like it had nowhere to be. And for the first time in years, she didn't rush to meet the day. She didn't start with a checklist or a task. She just stayed, wrapped in the same blanket from last night, hair still unbrushed, no performance waiting to begin. The kitchen felt different too. It was the same kitchen, same chipped mug, same humming fridge, same creaky drawer that always caught. But today it didn't feel like a stage. It felt like hers. She poured coffee, not because she needed it to survive the next thing, but because she wanted to taste something warm. Scrambled eggs, no rush, no multitasking sadness in between bites. She sat alone at the table. No one watching, no one needing her, no one grading her presence, just her. And for the first time, that was enough. There's a kind of peace that doesn't shout, doesn't declare healing or victory. It just sits beside you, like a friend who doesn't ask questions, like stillness that stays. She remembered all the times she woke up early to be on, to be helpful, pleasant, effortless, and now she could barely recognize the girl who used to confuse exhaustion with goodness. The mirror waited for her again. Same place, same tilt. She passed it like she always did. But this time she stopped. She looked, not to adjust anything, not to check for flaws. She just looked. And for the first time, she saw someone she could stay with. No forced smile, no perfect posture, just a softness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. A kind of quiet honesty that said, "You don't have to earn love today. You already exist. That's enough." Her fingers brushed her hair, slow, gentle, and she thought of that little girl, the one who used to brush her mother's hair at the edge of the bed. So careful, so quiet, hoping to be seen, but also scared of what would happen if she really was. And now, years later, here she was, brushing her own, not for anyone else, not to be good, just because she finally believed she was worth caring for. Even by her own hands. The phone buzzed on the table. A message, a missed call, a calendar notification blinking at her. She watched it flash. Didn't pick it up. There was no dread, no guilt, just breath. She whispered, "Not right now." And for once, the world didn't fall apart. It just waited. She lit a candle on the windowsill, same one she hadn't touched in months. It flickered to life, soft, steady, imperfect. Like her. It didn't chase away the shadows, didn't brighten the whole room, but it was there, present, like she finally was. Kierkegaard once said, "To relate to oneself, and in relating, become real." And maybe this was what realness looked like. Not becoming perfect, not getting fixed, but sitting at a breakfast table in an old hoodie with a chipped mug and swollen eyes, and feeling for once like you belonged in your own body. No applause, no audience, just breath. And a girl who had carried too much, learning how to hold herself. The tremble was still there. It lived in her hands, in the way she answered softly when someone asked how she was, in the way she paused before saying, "I'm fine." But she didn't fight it anymore, didn't shame it, didn't hide it behind productivity or perfection. She let it stay, let it breathe beside her, let it be part of her rhythm, because the tremble, that quiet, unsteady beat, wasn't failure. It was truth. It was proof that she hadn't disappeared inside the role, that she hadn't become only what the world asked of her, that something soft, something honest still remained. And as the candle flickered in the morning light, she smiled. Not for them, not for show, not to prove she was better now, just because the silence let her. And for the first time, that felt like freedom. And maybe, if you're listening to this right now, at 2 a.m., or in the middle of your day pretending to be fine, you don't need a solution. You just need a mirror that says, "You've carried enough. You can come home to yourself now." No fixing, no proving, just you. Still trembling, but still here. If this story felt like yours, stay a while. You don't have to subscribe to anything, just to yourself. Just to the part of you that's been waiting to be seen, soft, tired, and quietly brave. We'll be here when you're ready, when the world gets too loud, when all you need is someone to whisper back, "I know."